Welcome to Premiere's first webinar, Preparing Multi-Actor Projects in a Co-Creative Way. We will talk about multi-actor projects and the preparation of proposals today. My name is Susanne von Münchhausen. I'm the coordinator of the Premiere project, and I work with Eberswalde University. This is the first webinar of a series of 12 webinars. These webinars about the multi-actor approach will explore and inform about key aspects for preparing multi-actor project proposals. The focus will be on the multi-actor eligibility condition of an increasing number of Horizon Europe call topics. The Premiere webinars will be held in the upcoming 3 years, 25 to 27. So this first webinar is about preparing multi-actor projects in a co-creative way. The second one will be held in February, finding the suitable partners for a multi-actor consortium. And then the following one in March has the title, Understanding the Specifics of Multi-Actor Approach Projects in Your Call. And the fourth in April has the following title, Who Brings What to the Consortium? A template for consortium roles and skill composition. And then in May, good practices for methodology and approach when writing the concept of the multi-actor project proposal. And before the summer break, we will have a seminar on how is multi-actor evaluated in Horizon Europe. So follow our website and you will find out about these webinars. Welcome to the project Premiere. Premiere aims to contribute to more effective programming and implementation of the multi-actor approach. Abbreviation is MAA. Premiere aims to provide support to those preparing multi-actor project proposals, such as experienced proposal writers and partners with or without multi-expert expertise. And it's also for newcomers in Horizon multi-actor proposal development. And as well for service providers supporting the proposal development. Premiere is about the multi-actor approach, and it is itself a multi-actor project. It's a coordination and support action, a CSA. We have 15 diverse organizations from across Europe, which are based in 12 EU member states, coordinated by Eberswalde University. We started in January 23 and will finish in December 27. Budget is around about 5 million, and you can follow us on social media, and we have a website where we present all our material and services. And this is a short list of the material and services which we offer. There's an online academy, which you find on the website. It shows hand-on material with good practices for effective multi-actor co-creation. For example, the cartoons, and one of them is shown here on the right-hand side. Cartoons for different types of proposal development. We have brokerage events to connect with potential partners. Piloting of seed funding for operational groups and other co-innovation actors, which aim to engage in EU multi-actor consortia. There are webinars, such as this one today, e-learning courses, and multi-actor simulation games. So it's all about fostering actors' capacity for multi-actor co-creation during the proposal phase. Premiere is not the only project that helps to support the knowledge flow and the development of proposals and the running of multi-actor projects. The EU Commission funds a family of projects that enhance co-innovation and the AKIS, the Agricultural Knowledge and Innovation System in Europe and in the different member states. So Premiere is only one part of the puzzle. And now we start with the first webinar, Preparing Multi-Actor Projects in a Co-Creative Way for Horizon Europe Goals 2025. I welcome 4 speakers who will present today in this session. First speaker will be Marta Conde. She represents the national contact point for Horizon Europe in Spain, and she will introduce to the multi-actor approach and helps with the understanding of the related requirements. The second speaker will be Vesna Milicic. She is Senior Consultant at the Chamber of Agriculture for Food and Enterprises, and she will present the experiences of her organization with the multi-actor approach from the perspective of the private sector. And our last speaker, David Miller, he's Knowledge Exchange Coordinator from the James Hutton Institute. He will share experiences with the multi-actor approach from the perspective of an academia. And I will start with a short introduction for the multi-actor approach and give a little bit an overview. So my name is Susanne von Münchhausen from Eberswalde University. So it's all about a hierarchy of policy concepts and tools. The overarching rationale comes from the societal challenges addressed by EU and national strategies because they require innovative solutions in agriculture, forestry, and rural areas. The European Commission promotes the interactive innovation approach as a method to speed up innovation. The EIP Agri concept, and EIP Agri stands for European Innovation Partnership for Agricultural Productivity and Sustainability. This EIP Agri concept ensures the implementation of the interactive innovation approach through different funding programs and tools. The EIP Agri concept is the overarching policy concept for co-innovation in agriculture, forestry, and rural development. Now we come to the multi-actor approach, which the European Commission adopted to operationalize the interactive innovation approach in the research and innovation programs, namely Horizon 2020 and the currently ongoing Horizon Europe program. In 2025, more than 30 Horizon Europe Cluster 6 call topics require applicants to highlight the following in their proposal document. A, the actual implementation of the multi-actor approach during proposal planning and writing, and the envisaged multi-actor methods and co-creative work plan in the planned project. These both elements need to be visible in the proposal document. And on the right side, the chart shows this hierarchy of policy concepts of tools with the overarching EIP Agri concept on top, and then the research and innovation framework, Horizon is ongoing, with the multi-actor approach and the 7 multi-actor requirements. So the EIP Agri is the overarching concept, which focuses on using the interactive innovation model to foster more competitive and sustainable farming, forestry, and rural development. The EIP Agri concept is financed by 2 funding streams. And these are shown by the chart on the right-hand side, which we will explain later on. So first, it is the research and innovation framework of the European Commission with Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe with the multi-actor projects. And secondly, it's the national CAP strategic plans, co-funded by EU member states, with the EIP Agri operational group projects. And CAP stands for Common Agricultural Policy. Both EIP Agri funding streams have in common the funding of consortia or groups that apply the interactive innovation approach in research and/or innovation projects, and the financing of support services providing the enabling environment for the funded interactive innovation projects. These are, on the European level, the EU CAP network EIP Agri support facilities. On the national level, these support services are the national CAP network EIP Agri units and the national authorities with innovation support services. All these services are offering, for example, brochures, videos, online platforms, conferences, focus groups, seminars, and brokerage events, as well as other networking events. Listen carefully and ask if unclear. Depending on the context, speakers might use the term EIP Agri as a short form of the overarching EIP Agri policy concept, or the EU CAP network support facility for innovation and knowledge exchange, including EIP Agri, which is based in Brussels, or they use it for CAP funding of EIP Agri operational groups, or basically they also use it for EIP Agri operational group projects. So what about the multi-actor approach? Firstly, it is the eligibility criterion in the core topic description of the European Research and Innovation Framework Program. Secondly, it is one of the several policy approaches that build the EIP Agri concept. So the EIP Agri concept is the vessel, and within we've got the multi-actor approach, the operational group funding, we've got focus groups and all the support facilities. And thirdly, the multi-actor approach is funding projects, and the multi-actor approach is project funding that consists of a set of elements, and these are the 7 multi-actor requirements. First, it's the legal request to apply the multi-actor approach. So the multi-actor approach represents an eligibility criterion in around half of the cluster 6 call topics of the work program 25. This is required in excellence, which is the first of the 3 chapters in the template of the Horizon Europe application document. And it needs to be shown in the underlying multi-actor specific methods and co-creation activities represented in the proposals. It is also requiring a needs-driven pathway to impact, and it also requires the implementation of a work plan based on the competencies of actors in the multi-actor consortium. Imagine at the Commission's Directorate General for Agriculture. Officials talk about this formal multi-actor requirements, and they say, we expect applicants to comply to all the 7 multi-actor requirements. What does it mean, these 7 multi-actor requirements? Proposals need to explain how the objectives target the user's needs, challenges, and opportunities of the project results. Also need to explain how the project, including the composition of the consortium, has a balanced choice of relevant key actors with complementary knowledge, scientific knowledge, practical knowledge, administrative knowledge, legal knowledge. All this knowledge is needed to prepare practice-ready results. They also need to explain how existing practices and tacit knowledge will be used with a sufficient number of knowledge exchange activities. And very important, proposals also need to show how the multi-actor engagement process will be facilitated. Number 5, proposals need to explain how the project complements existing research and best practices, goes beyond state of the art, not only in terms of scientific results, but also in terms of best practices. It needs to show how activities result in practical and ready-to-use knowledge, approaches, tools, or products that are easily accessible. And finally, these outputs will feed into the existing dissemination channels most consulted by the users in countries, regions, and different sectors. Let's have a closer look to this requirement. Consortia have a balanced choice of relevant key actors. Actors are involved from proposal development until the end of the project. So there is this time aspect of actors' involvement. Several actors, which are organizations or individuals in the consortium, represent the users of the project's output. These practice-oriented actors ensure the objectives are needs-driven, the results are practice-ready, tacit knowledge feeds into the work, results go beyond the status quo of current good practices, and practitioners' information channels are used. So that's a tricky thing, actually, and that's why we would like to highlight in this overview table the delineation between actors versus stakeholders. So the purpose of the involvement of actors is co-creation of practical solutions. Stakeholders are rather involved for consultation, validation, wider dissemination, and exploitation of project results. When it comes to the participation level, actors are actually interactive participants. They are acting and deciding together, while stakeholders have a rather consultative, informing role. When it comes to frequency, actors are involved and active and contributing throughout the project, while stakeholders are rather involved periodically at a certain moment in time. And then also related to the outcome, there's an important difference. Actors have ownership of project results. Stakeholders contribute to wider adaptation and to the adaptation of concrete project results. So it's all about the depth and frequency of the co-creation work when we are distinguishing between the role of actors versus stakeholders. So what do they say at the Commission's Directorate General for Agriculture? Some of the 7 multi-actor requirements focus in particular on stakeholder engagement, while others target mainly the cooperation among actors. And with this, I would like to hand over to Marta Conde from the Spanish National Contact Point, who will talk about the multi-actor specificities. Marta is an agricultural engineer, and she is National Contact Point official for Cluster 6 in Horizon Europe for the areas food, bioeconomy, and agriculture, and the EU mission A Soil Deal for Europe. Marta, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. As I said, for the invitation, I was asked to share with you my understanding of the requirements of a multi-actor approach when you are preparing a proposal for cluster 6 calls. Next one, please. So in my opinion, there are three key elements that you need to take into consideration when you start drafting or preparing a proposal. In first place, you have to understand very well the concept, what it is, multi-actor approach, what it means, and why is it relevant. And the second key element is to understand the link between multi-actor approach and the European Union CAP network, what we know as the EIP Agri. And the third issue is how a multi-actor approach proposal is evaluated, so that you don't forget anything. Next one, please. So since we only have some minutes, 15 minutes or a little bit less, I will ask you to visualize a webinar that was organized by the network of Cluster 6 NCPs on the 4th of December 1 year ago, 2023, that dedicated 2.5 hours to go deeply into all the details of a multi-actor approach in Cluster 6 proposals. Next one, please. In this webinar, we had the opportunity to listen to Natalia Brezina from DG Agri, who explained all the details about the multi-actor approach. We had also Pacom Elona from the EIP Agri Support Facilities who explained very well the relation between multi-actor approach and the operational groups implemented through the EIP Agri. And we also had the opportunity to listen to Astrid Giffard, who is a project officer in REA, in the Research Executive Agency, and who explained how the multi-actor approach is evaluated in Cluster 6 proposals. Next one, please. So in the next minutes, I will go and give you some short information about the content of all these presentations. So let's start with the first important key element, which is what is the multi-actor approach and why is it important in Cluster 6 project proposals. Next one. So if we look at the calls of Cluster 6 in 2024, we have to be aware that 50% of the topics were marked with this multi-actor approach, which is an eligibility criteria. This means that it is very important, and if you do not fulfill all these requirements, your project will not enter into evaluation. And this multi-actor approach is not as relevant in all the calls. It is very important in the farm-to-fork calls, the communities, and the governance, where you see a very high percentage of the topics highlighted as a multi-actor approach. It is also very common in the mission A Soldier for Europe, where most of the topics are marked with this multi-actor approach. And it is also very common on the Circular Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking. Next one, please. And where can you find the requirements of the multi-actor approach? It is usually included in the introduction of all the work programs, of the soil mission, of the Cluster 6. It is quite an extent and long description, around 2 pages, with a general definition and some requirements that we will see now. But at the end of the definition, you will also see that there are links or requirements related to the EIP Agri, the operational groups, and the EU CAP network. Next one, please. So in general terms, a multi-actor approach definition indicates that it is a way of responsible research and innovation. It's a research and innovation process that starts from demand-driven, and it shares the problems and needs relevant to society. It is much more than just a widely disseminating the results, and you need to involve a target array of actors, of end users, farmers, foresters, aquaculture producers, NGOs, industry, policymakers, depending on the topic and depending on the project. and they have to participate during the whole course of the project in a co-creation process and a co-ownership of the results. Additionally to this, and we can see it in the next slides, the definition, the next slide please, Laura. The definition of the multi-actor approach includes 7 additional requirements that, in my opinion, are very easily and well described in this brochure, that it is already a little bit old, from 2017, and that you can find in the EIP Agri website, that very much gives you some ideas on how to prepare a proposal. You can see here in this graphic, for example, you need to start your proposal targeting real life needs and problems and opportunities. You need to choose your consortium partners with complementary types of knowledge and the skills. You will have to include farmers, foresters, and other end users to benefit from their entrepreneurial skills. You will have to make an important effort on the transfer of knowledge. Well, you have to involve all these, set up a plan for a clear role. All of the partners have a clear role in the project, and organize knowledge exchange activities. Next slide, please, Laura. The one before, okay. You will also have to bridge the gap between research and practice by facilitating discussions, and all partners must co-create and co-decide throughout the project. You will need to illustrate how the project complements existing research and best practices, and you will have to produce practical information which fits into the most common existing dissemination channels. I have left to the end 2 phrases marked in red, which highlight the need to collaborate with the EIP Agri operational groups, and also to develop and carry out a standable practice abstract that will have to use the common EIP format. Next slide, please. And let's go to the second key element, in my opinion, is that you have to understand very well the link between the multi-actor approach and the European Union CAP network that now includes the EIP Agri. Next one, please. And this, as I said, is very well explained during this webinar that I mentioned by Paco Melona, who is the head of the support facility of the EIP Agri. That explained, as you will see now. Next one, please. Because in the past we had the EIP Agri, but now this initiative is included under one of the services of the European CAP network. This you have to keep in mind, because the information is being updated, the website, the databases. So this is important. Next slide, please. But the philosophy or the idea behind this is the same as the beginning in 2014. This EIP Agri within the European CAP network, that is a tool to promote synergies between 2 policies, the Horizon Europe program through the implementation of the multi-actor approach project, the thematic networks, the advisory networks, and on the other hand, the CAP strategic plans that are supporting a significant number of operational groups that are working on the field. And the idea is to make the greatest impact of the results of the Horizon Europe projects, producing a repository of unique knowledge, of contacts and practice abstract. The idea is that the results of the Horizon Europe project end up and have an impact on the end users, on the farmers, on the companies, etc. Next one, please. And this is how the EIP Agri has been implemented in the previous period, 2014 until 2022, well, with the implementation of the CAP, the Commission was able to put in place more than 3,200 operational groups. The objectives for the new period, 2023-2027, is even more ambitious. 25 member states will contribute to keep implementing the IP Agri and supporting more than 6,600 operational groups. Next one, please. And as you can see in this slide, we have a significant number of operational groups already working on different technological fields related to agriculture, to food, to forestry, to livestock production, but also, as you can see highlighted in red, other operational groups in other areas which are not so maybe common for us, related to biodiversity and nature management, or to waste, energy management, or climate change. Next one, please. Because what you will have to do at the end during the preparation of your proposal is to link your multi-actor approach project to operational groups ongoing. You can do this at the different levels. First, you can, for example, at proposal stage, identify the operational groups related to your topic. Or you can contact these operational groups coordinators and present them your project idea. Or you can go a step forward and you can involve these operational groups or the members of the operational group to be part of your consortium, participating in your project with an active role. And of course, you can define along the project different activities to be implemented with different operational groups. These are some ideas that PACOM provided us during this webinar that I want to share with you and that can help you make a competitive proposal. Next slide, please. So let's go to the last important key element, is that you have to have very clear how your multi-actor approach project is going to be evaluated. Next slide, please. And as you know, Horizon Europe proposals are evaluated according to 3 criteria: excellence, impact, and the quality and the efficiency of the implementation. Next one. And of course, as you know, each element can only be evaluated in one of these evaluation criteria. And taking this in mind, the multi-actor approach is going to be evaluated under the excellence criteria. But this doesn't mean that you have to make sure that your multi-actor approach is present and very well defended all along the proposal, in all the parts of the proposal. But if we look carefully to the evaluation of the excellence criteria, the evaluators will receive from the European Commission the indications to evaluate multi-actor approach in this criteria. You will have to, regarding the objectives, you will have to make sure that the project objectives must be targeting the needs and opportunities of end users. If we talk about the methodology, you will have to demonstrate a genuine and sufficient involvement of such actors that should take place all over the whole course of the project. Okay, next one, please. And if we think about the impact section, you will have to demonstrate that you will use dissemination channels most consulted by the end users of the project results in countries and regions. Next one, please. And regarding this 3rd section of the proposal that deals with the quality and efficiency of the implementation, you will have to demonstrate precise and active roles of the different non-scientific actors in the work. And regarding the capacity and role of each participant, you will have to demonstrate that the composition of the consortium reflects a balanced choice of relevant key actors who have complementary types of knowledge, scientific and practical. Next one, please. So if I had to give you a last recommendation or one final message, if you're going to participate in 2025 Cluster 6 calls, you will participate or coordinate a proposal, please dedicate 2.5 hours to watch this webinar organized by Carrefour Bio on the 4th of December last year, because you will get many good recommendations and ideas. Thank you very much for your attention. Next one, please. This is all from my side. And at the end of the webinar, I will be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marta, for this good presentation. And now I would like to introduce Vesna Milicic from Slovenia. She's senior consultant at the Chamber of Agriculture and Food Enterprises. Vesna is an agricultural engineer from the University of Ljubljana. Vesna, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning, everyone. From Slovenia, from our side, we are very glad to participate to this first webinar of Premiere project, which we are also a partner of it. So really thank you very much for this opportunity to explain more in details how basically the multi-actor approach is implemented in the business private sector, and what were, let's say, the main obstacles that we faced within this process. So while we were writing the project proposals, as well as once project is approved and is ongoing. So my name is Vesna Milicic. I work as a senior consultant at the Chamber of Agricultural and Food Enterprises, which is a part of a Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia. So we are based in Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia, and we basically are in daily contact with larger food and agricultural enterprises. Next slide, please. So who we are, actually we unite, connect and represent agricultural and food companies in Slovenia in their relations with state authorities, of course, and European industry associations. We also accelerate and promote the development of activities, the exchange of knowledge and ideas, and we transfer best practices from Slovenia and abroad to our specific cases. We also provide professional support in the form of consultations, education, and information sharing and training for our members. Next slide, please. So this is our team. Our director, and then we have the directors for certain areas. As you can see, we are not well gender balanced, but this is the reason behind this, because this work involves quite a lot of communication and networking. So on the other side, it's very, in that case, demanding. And we also work on lots of projects as well. So this year, we basically hired a few new forces working explicitly on projects. Next slide, please. So who are our members? As I already explained, so our members are mainly agricultural and food enterprises. Most of them are in food processing industry. Then other fields as well, for example, like commercial, education, and so on. Then, according to the size, the most representative part are micro enterprises, and then they follow by small enterprises follow, and we have a few large enterprises as well. So this is like in terms of the European definition. So in total, we have more than 260 members. Some of them are coming, so we welcome all of them because our membership is not obligatory. So basically, the ones who recognize our service, they join. Okay, next slide, please. As part of that, this is very important that we have quite a few international relations. So we are members of 13 sector and 1 umbrella European associations, which deals basically with food and drink industry. So the umbrella organization is Food Drink Europe, and then we are members of others as well by sector, so grain sector, fruit, vegetable sector, biogas sector, wine sector, and so on. So how basically these international relations helps us with the project proposal writing. So we, as a part of the European Biogas Association, we are also partner of Regatrace, one European Horizon 2020 project, which deals concretely with new innovation in biogas industry, so developing new processes, which is very beneficial for our members as well. Okay, then basically concretely, apart from the international relations, so next slide, you can see on the next slide that also we are part of networks and partnerships. And these three at the moment are the most important for us. So the first one is Space Gaia, which represents a unique network in Europe made of food and beverage associations. You can see also the partners come from various European countries as well as outside Europe. So Turkey is a member as well. So this association or partnership is very important in terms of gaining new proposals, gaining new projects, and entering new projects from the business side. The second one is Ecotrophelia Europe. Probably, if you are familiar with it, this is basically European Economic Interest Group that mainly aims to unite stakeholders from different European member states, just to bring together food industry actors and to promote innovative basically ideas and concrete food let's say concrete food outputs at the end. And then the third network is the thematic smart specialization partnership, Smart Sensors for Agri-Food, which basically builds on expertise of 40+ partners and clusters and research centers. So this all combines basically agri-food sector in order to interconnect and to promote sustainable and to develop more sustainable, resilient and smart agri-food systems in Europe. So in favor of this partnership, which we are a part of, we gained the High Five project. So this is also the European, let's say, part of the project and basically co-financing the concrete ideas which business needs in order to achieve all these sustainable development goals and also the CAP overall objectives. So on the next slide, you can see that basically projects means a lot to us. They are an added value for our chamber and of course our members, because they enable us to conduct really in-depth analysis, and they address numerous issues in the agri-food sectors, which we are the main representative of in Slovenia. So as you can see on the next slide, we were already involved in many projects from different European programs, such as Interreg, also Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe. So I won't go into the details. You can afterwards look at the presentation, and if you are interested of the results of any of these projects, you are more than welcome to click on the website or read this presentation. And then on the next slide, there is a second part of projects we were involved in successfully. So in the period of 2008 until 2020. These were all projects which basically industry and our business partners and members needed. So we acted here as facilitators, messengers, or connectors. So with the research institutions, as well as universities and other institutions, not only from Slovenia, but from all over Europe, just to find the concrete solutions that our members need. And then, as you can see on the next slide, Currently, we are involved in 12 European projects funded by different European programs. And one of them is, of course, Premiere, which I already mentioned, and High Five, which is directly connected to the business sector. On the next slide, you can see, so these are multi-actor requirements that Marta already mentioned, and I'm really glad that she did that. But how actually do we implement this in practice, and how does it work for us? As you can see on the next slide, and basically we have like two levels of how can we implement multi-actor requirements. So the first level is while the project proposal is in process, is in writing process. Of course, here we as a most representative member in food industry sector in Slovenia, we respond to the invitations we receive. So to join the proposed consortium of the project core, and then we look at this carefully. We have like several meetings with the coordinator, and then we also provide this information to our members if they will use the results of this project, and then we go further on. We actively engage in the writing process. So this involves quite a lot of communication, which sometimes has its downsides, but we are trying with our skills and competencies that we have, we are trying to overcome this so that at the end, the proposal is successfully written and submitted. And then, of course, we communicate very intensively with all the dedicated work package leaders and coordinator of the project proposal. And then once this project proposal is approved, then we actually have an active role in the project as a project partner wherever we can have. And this is already agreed beforehand while the project is written. And then we inform, of course, our members, particularly from the field the project is dealing with, about the intermediate results of the project. And of course, we are actively engage them in the activities wherever we can. And then, if necessary, of course, we involve other members as well. So not only the companies, but also the research institutions, faculties, and so on. But this is I must say that one downside of this is that sometimes it's quite hard to convince them because there is no dedicated funds for this most of the time in the projects. So we really need to justify that the project will benefit to their activities, so to our members' activities, and that they will benefit from them in the long term as well as in short term. As you can see on the other slide, we have one good example of the Horizon Europe project. This is basically European partnership, which we are a part of. So this is a partnership, innovative European partnership that focuses mainly on transformation of Europe's food production and consumption. So in this partnership, basically there are leading partners, research institutions, businesses, and policymakers in one, and with the main aim to develop joint solutions to all these complex challenges that we face today in relation to food systems, climate change, biodiversity loss, and food securities. So this is a really huge partnership consisting of 86 partners from 29 countries, and it includes also national and regional authorities and funding agencies, research and university institutions, foundations, and competitiveness clusters. So basically, this works like that this partnership will launch or will be launching 6 external calls and various in-kind activities over 10 years. And this will really, really help the members and the businesses as well to overcome all the problems and the, let's say, challenges they are facing nowadays in terms of getting to more sustainable food production and food processing. And then, as you can see on the next slide, here, these actions, this partnership has 4 specific actions. The one is co-funding, the second one is observatory, the third one is hubs of food system labs, so living labs, and the fourth one is knowledge sharing. So, and in all 4 of them, we will be also actively involved. So the first activity we already undertook is the mapping of living labs in Slovenia, and to actively involve those living labs in our country in order to, let's say, collaborate and to in the real world settings to develop more innovative and supported solutions for agri-food sector. But this is a very big partnership. It will last for 10 years. So within 10 years, so 10 years from now is after 2030. And we are really, really hoping that this partnership will bring some concrete solutions, not only for the businesses, but also for the society as a whole. Then next slide, please. This is the final slide, basically. So these are my contact details. So if anyone has some more concrete questions, I will be really glad to answer them. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the presentation of the role of your organization in Horizon Multi-Actor Projects, Vesna. I would like to now welcome our third speaker, David Miller, from the James Hutton Institute. David, thanks a lot for being here. And now we are curious to hear from your experiences with your multi-actor projects.
Good morning, colleagues. Thanks for the invitation to join the first of these premier webinars, and I hope that messages don't come up on my screen and distract. My name's David Miller. I'm from the James Hutton Institute in the UK, and the following slides are reflections and findings from a collection of European Union funded projects, Simra, Sherpa, Uniseco, and Granular, and some of you on the call, I believe, have been involved in a couple of these. And this is all using multi-actor approaches or living labs. What I'd like to do is reflect on the multi-actor approach and the importance of the transdisciplinary elements to this. You heard that from our previous speaker, coming from the industry and business perspective, that the essential characteristic of these platforms, at least from our perspectives, and I think that's true of the Commission in their promotion of the multi-actor approach, is the involvement of non-academic participants with and alongside academic participants. And the direction of travel is towards transdisciplinary work in an integrative fashion. So the top right part of the graph is where the aspiration is for the implementation of multi-actor approaches. From the examples I'm going to describe, I show here the geographic distribution of multi-actor platforms in 2 of these projects, one on Uniseco on agroecological transitions, and the other Sherpa on science, policy, society interfaces. On the right-hand side, you'll see some other projects listed, Desira, Moving, Poly, Rural, and Granular. And my first observation here is that with the expectation and requirements of the European Commission and also national funders of greater involvement of practitioners in industry, civil society, and policy, it means there's a great deal of demand on the time of those whose responsibilities are not directly research. And so the point the previous speaker made about to what extent the results and findings will make a difference and be valued by members is one that I would reinforce and reiterate. For it to be worthwhile, these partners and the range of organizations to join in, some of whom will be joining without financial recompense, it means that the output has to be of direct relevance. And recognizing, of course, that in some parts of Europe, there will not be many organizations that will fit a required area of policy or business or civil society. That would be true of some of our remote or rural areas, but it might also be true of urban areas in particular skill sets. So the observation that I then follow is that the distribution in each of these projects enables different contexts and settings, enables consideration of diversity in origin and the constellation of types of actors, varieties of objectives and topics, and a continuation from one project to the next, utilizing existing through into future evolution of processes of engagement. And that is one of the key impacts that we seek, is the development of long-term relationships. So the concluding comment on this slide is that the importance or an importance of multi-actor platforms is to be able to accommodate context, settings, origins, and objectives in a coherent fashion across, in this case, Europe, but it could be further afield, but in a meaningful way for those that are participating. This is also true, not just geographically, but in terms of governance, responsibilities, and remits. For example, within the Sherpa project, their think tank was bringing together perspectives at the level of individual multi-actor platforms. And in our process in this project, the discussion papers that each of these multi-actor platforms produced, which led at a regional national level to their position papers, which then informed a European level multi-actor platform, drawing heavily from civil society representative groups and the European Commission. So there's a vertical integration required across governance. And the thinking here was to try and bring from these different geographic and thematic remits different perspectives on synthesizing findings, formulating messages, and negotiating final position statements. And this has brought inputs from different clusters of multi-actor platforms, so that within a project, across different geographic areas, but perhaps themed by topic, in this case, farm systems, there was a long-term conversation throughout the project of a subset that could get to know each other in a different level. And this was then reflected in part in some of the position and discussion papers produced in terms of the teams developing each of these position and discussion papers, all originating from the multi-actor platforms, so bottom up. And part of the recruitment into these platforms is to be able to consider the different perspectives. So the co-construction by actors of policies or different solutions requires the perspective, for example, in this agroecological project, of the farmers, of the advisors, of members of the value chain, and of the rural community and civil society organizations in the areas of interest, plus the scientific inputs and the policy teams of relevance, which will be organized differently in different countries. It might be a ministry responsible for rural in one country, agriculture in another country, cohesion at a European level. So there can be a complex set of responsibilities that need understood at the time of inviting people in and explaining to them why the core focus of the platform can deliver to their different objectives. And in the knowledge exchange elements of this, the delivery on the ground, on site, in field, in workshops, or virtually, so that peer-to-peer learning and promotion of best practice can be encouraged and facilitated. And what we found and tried to design into the multi-actor platforms is how there can be different contributions to the governance of transitions. These may be just transitions in climate change, agroecological transitions, or transitions in forms of governance in different parts of particularly rural Europe. And What we're trying to do in all of the projects I'm exampled is to build capacity in each of the actor areas: policy, research, civil society, industry, and spatially at community level. And the short elements here are to help with rural dialogues, inform development of policy, increase connectivity, and deliver action on the ground. So, for example, with improving policy from a bottom-up level, how can debates about and inputs to the long-term vision for rural areas of the European Union, how can that be informed by experiences on the ground around Europe? How can that bring in the perspectives of local decision makers? And an observation here is that the processes, to be credible at a national or European level, to be valid and recognized for their authenticity, the processes need to be transparent, explicable, so they need to be explained to people, they need to be evidence-based, and this we've found in the outputs from all of these projects are informing and being used in the development of policy at European and national levels. An example here from the UNICEF and Sherpa projects is focusing towards transitions to sustainable farming. So the key was to bring in the transdisciplinary perspective to construct, co-construct practice-validated strategies. So the selection of the actors, the formulation of the multi-actor platforms, and the topics on which each one would focus had to contribute to an overarching perspective of how does Europe move towards sustainable farming, how does agroecology get promoted, and how can strategies be developed and policy recommendations formulated that will help the construction in the future of viable farming systems, focusing in this case on agroecology. And one element to this, which links through to the Sherpa project as well, is the importance of strengthening existing and new networks and informing this dialogue between science, society, and policy, and providing it with evidence that can be used. And the evidence, drawing here from the CIMRA project on social innovation in marginalized rural areas, of which our hosts in Zaragoza were partners, and indeed part of the development of the capacity building and co-learning to develop understandings of transdisciplinarity, was to run training courses face-to-face in intensive sessions, in this case, in the training course facility in Zaragoza, to translate some of that into an online MOOC and to complement it with other means of actor information, in this case, a suite of participatory videos. Combining these contributes towards the capacity building and had to be done in such a way that it was the multi-actor platforms that were providing the core evidence and the materials that could be translated into further utilization, in turn boosting connectivity within these areas and between areas. So here on this point about connectivity, which is also part of the long-term vision for rural areas, is the consideration of implementing what the actors are developing as their proposals and providing feedback to show that the investment made by volunteers in many cases, but if not, in businesses that are contributing some of their own funding to people's time, leads to meaningful outputs. Part of that, at least in the social and the community end, it might be in developing and strengthening social capital. And it might also be in developing up and recognizing who the trusted intermediaries are in farming or in governance or in renewable energy or in other forms of priorities or other priorities within rural areas. And using the mechanisms of multi-actor platforms to break up sectoral or disciplinary silos. And as I mentioned a moment ago, with a view to developing long-term relations, not just a relationship within any one of the example projects that I'm listing here. with a key element, and this is a requirement of the European Commission, it's part of their science strategy for Horizon 2020, it is in Horizon Europe, of supporting and delivering actions on the ground. So the value from each of the sectors and types of actors is what sort of insights can they contribute to overcoming barriers. So our recruitment into the platforms and the facilitation of the platforms has a one focus, which is, well, what are the best ways of facilitating insights to be volunteered by the different types of actors? And how can we strengthen collaboration in actions, perhaps for increasing negotiating power within value chains? That's one of the examples on the agroecology and sustainable farming. But more broadly, how can people be brought together to develop learning communities? And to what extent can the processes improve access to knowledge and facilities and the recognition of the benefits of testing and piloting solutions on the ground? And that's where some of the co-construction and the importance of the best or the most effective means of communicating will lever the investment in the multi-actor platforms. And these might be practice abstracts, they might be guidelines for social innovation, they might be demonstrators, they might be different ways of articulating how to do transitions in different geographic areas and contexts. So drawing to a close then, part of their lessons learned and implementation in current projects using multi-actor platforms and transitioning into living labs is the importance of developing social capital, focus on long-term processes, and enabling policy environment that will support capacity building. There are new examples. We heard one of the European Union partnerships mentioned a moment ago. Colleagues, but not I and not our institution, involved in the agroecology partnership are drawing on some of these findings, for instance, in the UNISECO and Sherpa projects, to deliver into that type of Europe-wide partnership with a significant investment in living labs and an aspiration of the Commission across Europe of a significant network of living labs focusing principally on agroecology. So multiply that across relevant topic areas and one can see how there is a prospect of really interesting evolution of interacting networks compiled for different reasons, but beginning to share across geographies, disciplines, and themes. Fostering core elements of transitions in whatever fashion as we go through continentally, the whole range of transitions socially, and building up skills, for example, for future generations. And the approach of our approaches, at least for the multi-actor platform development, considering the ethics, considering the research methodologies, is also to include the harder to reach actors, those that might be individuals that are less included within society or voices that are not heard within the topic domains. And there's a great opportunity for further utilizing the synergies with other forms of multi-actor approaches, such as living labs, to continue a process which has been running under different headings, at least for the last 8 years, but other colleagues would identify equivalent ways of thinking preceding that. So it's not new, but it is being formulated and clearly getting policy and funding support for joint learning, in this case for sustainable futures, and that the maps provide the forms of transdisciplinary engagement forums, which can then be implemented further. So I'm going to pause there and I'll thank all my collaborators within these projects who've contributed materials that we've drawn together to share with you in the webinar this morning. And with that, I'll pass back to Laura and colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Miller, for this encompassing presentation. Now we will have time for the discussion. All our speakers are present and we open the floor for questions. Okay, if we don't have any questions yet, I might just ask briefly for you personally, which value has the multi-actor approach, the truly multi-actor, the involvement of different people, different perspective, transdisciplinary, participatory, and so on? Which opportunities do you see, Marta?
Well, I think that the multi-actor approach is really relevant to be able to deal with the main problems that we face today, but including all actors from the value chains and from society. So it is the opportunity so that everybody can participate actively and benefit from, well, from research. This is how I see it.
What do you mean actively participate? What means active? As we know, there are different opportunities to join, actually.
I mean, active, being part of Horizon Europe projects is to participate actively, because it's one of the requirements of the concept, to be part of the projects and participate along the whole process of the project. So this requires the active participation of all the beneficiaries.
So this would be more than the stakeholder platforms, what you are highlighting at the moment.
Well, I think that the platform, it's how it is organized within the project. What I mean is related to the requirements of the definition of the multi-actor approach.
Yeah. Vesna, from your perspective.
Yes, from the business perspective, from the private sector, the multi-actor approach is absolutely necessary, because we think that in order to combat to all of those current challenges that we face, the agri-food industry is facing, without multi-actor approach is absolutely impossible to solve them, both in short and in long term. I mean, because agri-food is not only about producing the food, it's also about sustainability, protecting the environment, and many other things where basically you need multi-actor approach to get together all the crucial partners, all the crucial people in order to solve particular problem you are facing and to find the appropriate solution. And maybe if I may add, in my presentation, I didn't mention, or I didn't emphasize this a lot, that multi-actor approach is now, you can see, beyond the Horizon Europe projects. It's also coming into the other programming schemes as well. And most of the time, we are actually not aware that we are doing it, that we are working in this manner, in multi-actor manner. Now, as we know it and as we are aware of it, it's even better, because the most important thing is that we are working on it further on, and that we build more stronger connections as well. And all this we can do if we have skills and competencies for this.
Yeah, that's crucial. Thanks a lot, Vesna. Yeah. We've got a question for David regarding capacity building and skills of younger generation. What is your experience in involving, and now it has gone, I don't know.
It was involving new participants.
Yes, something like that.
Yes, I've just typed an answer into the chat, but I could expand a little bit more to stress that the when bringing in new participants, not necessarily younger generations, but new participants, one benefit from the projects we've been in, but of course many more that we've not been party to, is to be able to point to testimonies from other participants to show, hopefully, that they've benefited and the evidence that they have benefited, and in particular to be able to point to testimonies from actors who are similar in type to those actors that we might be reaching out to as new participants. So a farmer recognizing benefits being accrued by another farmer, or a policy person in one country reading about how it benefited a policy person in the same area of topic responsibility in another country. So in a sense, it's peer-to-peer that we're looking to provide some of that testimony and evidence. For younger people, one of the key things, which I did not mention enough about, is about the processes that at least we go through and are required to go through to ensure it complies with all our ethics and research ethics approaches. That includes aspects of people's right to withdraw from a platform, to say thank you. We were appreciated the invitation. We found it interesting, possibly, but for whatever reason, they are wanting to withdraw. Now, when it comes to younger people, there are other considerations that have to be taken into account. And so we look for connections that give us legitimacy and that can authorize access to younger people so that the relevant responsibilities can be adhered to. So it's not a question of going to a school, it's a question of going to an education authority to then go to the heads in the school to then recruit children perhaps from a class. And that's a very important element for all sorts of very obvious reasons, because now, particularly post-COVID, and the Multiactor platform and Living Lab concepts have spanned and been boosted in some senses by the delivery of Zoom and WebEx and Teams during COVID. Because in one sense, it makes it easier for people to join from remote areas without having to go there in person. Yeah. But that comes with risks. And some of those risks are to do with cybersecurity and dangers, particularly exposing young people to engagement over the internet. So that's a long answer, but I wanted to stress the risks and the need to adhere to a process in my response. I'll stop.
Thanks a lot. And then there's a question from Marta related to budget. Do these projects have or need to have bigger budgets, as cooperation and collaboration with several actors requires a lot more time and effort and events?
Thank you, Susanne, for the question. Well, a multi-actor approach project fit within a topic of a call that has a recommended budget that may be smaller or bigger. Multi-actor approach projects do not necessarily have to have a very high budget. You can find different projects using different type of actions. You have coordination and support action, research and innovation actions, or innovation action, and the size varies very much. What applicants have to do is to fit very well the requirements of the topic and the multi-actor approach to the recommended budget given by the European Commission in the call. This is going to be evaluated. To what extent the budget fits the activities planned. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was a very concise answer. Since we don't have further questions and answers, we can finish this webinar right now. And as we highlighted in the beginning, there will be more webinars to come. And
sorry, Susanne.
Yeah,
I think
Esna.
there is another question in the chat, not in the Q&A, but in the chat.
From Marta, is there any feedback regarding multi-actor approach when we have Southern Mediterranean countries? Does policy recommendation have been successfully implemented or agreed by those countries? So these are a reference to Northern African countries.
Well, I forgot to say in my presentation that, for example, multi-actor approach is also included in a partnership that is called PRIMA, the Partnership for Research and Innovation in the Mediterranean, for which I am also national contact point. So I have some experience on this. The requirement for Southern Mediterranean countries in PRIMA, for example, is not the same as it is in Cluster 6. But indeed, I'm sure that in the proposals, some recommendations are proposed, are going to be developed, but I do not have the feedback of the results of this project, so I cannot really reply to the second part of these questions. But a multi-actor approach indeed is also a recommendation for many of the projects that are being carried out with the partners of the south of the Mediterranean countries.
Thank you very much. And with this, we would like to close this webinar. And as we said before, we will have more webinars to come and other activities and material from the Premiere project. Just follow up with us and keep in touch. And thanks a lot for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Bye.